We're joined by a big friend of the pod, Niamh Sullivan today. She's helped us scale Harwell, the branding and the content strategy, and who we're actually trying to talk to and telling our story as a founder as well.
I recognised that I could only get the business to a certain level, and where we are now is a real testament to the people in our team. So if I can champion their personal brands and what they're doing alongside doing my own, that's been the most astronomical unlock of growth for us.
Someone that's thinking about starting a business or has just started a business, in the world of branding and creative, what's the one thing that they can do straight away?
Straight away is two things. I was diagnosed with cancer a couple months before I turned 12. You're an 11-year-old and you can't connect with your friends from school because they're looking at boys on the bus and getting ready for school dances, and you're going through chemo. And so you're building these relationships with people, but then they're not coming out the other side with you. I still have those thoughts like everybody does of, oh, what if it doesn't work out? I've got bills to pay next month. However, I do have almost like that childlike voice in the back of my head that says, but why not? You know, you've done this, you've done that. It's all worked out.
We are back for another episode of the Two Blokes, One Business podcast. We're your hosts, Harvey Rivers and Adam Powell.
We're joined by a big friend of the pod, Niamh Sullivan today. We are clients of Niamh's. She's helped us scale Harwell, mainly through the branding and the content strategy, and who we're actually trying to talk to and telling our story as a founder as well. So Niamh, you run Infix. It's been a bit of a rundown of your perfect customer and why you love to work with them so much.
Beautiful. Firstly, thanks so much for having me today. Really excited to be chatting. When it comes to the perfect customer, honestly, we work with clients across all different industries, all different sizes of business, and all different objectives as well. But what gets us most excited is when people aren't afraid to get a little creative, think outside the box. They don't necessarily want to do everything by the book and be really safe. And our team really thrives when we get given the challenge of, we want to do something different. We want to grow big. Now do your thing. And they trust in us. And that's really where we do our best work.
What's the sort of impact those companies that come in, and whether they're a new company or it's been done the same way forever and now they want to make that real big change and shift, do things that haven't been done before, what sort of impact has that created for some of your clients?
Having the foundations really clear and well defined for everybody in the team helps really get rid of the chaos, because as a business is growing, no matter whether it's an early stage business or it's a more of a legacy business that's been around for a while, we find that different people will have different ideas, and whilst everyone might think they're on the same page, there can be nuances and slight differences that actually mean that all the small decisions being made every day aren't aligned for the main goal, and there's no real North Star that the business is working towards. If we can define foundations that really help the client understand who they are and understand where they're going, they can make decisions across operations, sales, marketing, like everything can be part of this ecosystem that's moving them towards where they want to go. And that's really the biggest factor. And we find that whether it's a small startup that's just getting going or it's a business that's been around for 60, 70 years, you really can't measure just how valuable it is to have that foundation.
What about the shift from, say, 20 years ago before we all got into business, right? You'd have your big corporates and it would just be the brand. It wouldn't be the people inside the companies these days. And now I think we're all a good testament to being very founder-led in our businesses. We try and get our own stories across and our own challenges of where we've got to where we are today. When did you first notice that shift in people really wanting to know the people behind the brand, and how has that helped you leverage the work you do?
I feel like I've come into business from a bit of a unique perspective. Having worked at Channel 7 and being a news reporter, my job was all about people, understanding their stories and helping them tell their story. So when I then founded my own business, it felt natural to me to be talking about the stories of my clients, the stories of myself, the stories of the people within my company. And probably when I first started, it took a little while for that to actually stick. I was early 20s, didn't really have a network. Nobody really knew who I was. So even though I was talking about myself, it didn't really quite hit the mark. More so over the last 2 to 3 years, I've found that that's become a strength for the business. There's probably an element of the compounding effect of having done this every year, every week, every month since we first started. But there's also, we've had a bit of a shift towards, whilst I'm still a key face and founder of the brand, I like to also champion and create a bit of a platform and a spotlight for the faces and the people within our business. I recognize that I could only get the business to a certain level, and where we are now is a real testament to the people in our team. So if I can champion their personal brands and what they're doing alongside doing my own, I found that that's been the most astronomical unlock of growth for us.
I think it's super powerful. It's one thing that we did at the start with Harwell, is just putting ourselves on camera and letting people into Harvey and Adam's world. And there's so many different sales frameworks or recruitment processes, but at the core of it, people want to work with people they can connect with, people that they get on well with and have fun with, and also people that make them feel good. So that's where I think we had a lot of early success initially, stepping out of a big global brand where it was quite faceless to then Harvey and Adam doing the stupid videos with the sunglasses on. Like if you had two people there side by side that could offer the same process and give the same product, you're probably going to go and pick the one that makes you feel better and you have much more fun interacting with.
Absolutely. I mean, you're building a partnership and a relationship with people. You're having to work alongside them. It's not a transaction of a one-time interaction. So it only makes sense. And even as a business owner, I seek out clients and people that I would love to work with because I enjoy working alongside them. So why shouldn't clients and customers be looking for the same thing in return? And they can only do that if you put yourself out there. If you don't, you could be the easiest, best person to get along with, perfectly well aligned with them, but they just wouldn't know.
They just don't know what they don't know. Yeah. One of my favorite kind of compliments, if you like, to get, and then people reach out and say nice things, is you guys seem really, really genuine and you seem like you just have a laugh. Like, great, we're good at recruitment, we fucking know our industry, we're experts, all that stuff's important. But we're genuine, we're just so important to me, and we have a laugh because we generally do. I think that kind of energy, you want to work with those people rather than the person who's visibly stressed out their head, and it's a chore to them to go and do the little 1%ers that make people feel special. They haven't got the capacity or the brain power to do it as well.
It just makes work a whole lot more fun as well. And when you spend as much time at work as most people do, there's no longevity in it or long-term enjoyment if you're not taking the time to actually, slow down, have a laugh, make some friends, and really enjoy the ride. It becomes pretty boring otherwise.
Yeah. We hired a new guy the other day, literally 2-3 days ago. Two things here. One, he saw our job ad, called Adam, and then started researching on the company. And one of the first things he said, I've looked at your content. It looks like you've got an elite culture. So one, it's really powerful for that, not just clients as well. But two, part of our interview process is we get new staff to be interviewed and sit down with current staff members in a couple of groups of two, and they ask our staff questions, what are Harvey and Adam like? And the staff will ask this person questions. One of the things he said was do you guys actually have as much fun as what it looks like? And is the culture as good as what it looks like? Because he genuinely couldn't believe it. And the team were just yeah, it's who we are. It's the same whether we're in front of camera, in front of clients, whether it's here and we're on the phones or just having a team meeting. It's just constant, isn't it?
It's hard to get the balance though. And this is one thing, because we're all a similar age. We've got kind of mid-20s and we've got kind of mid-30s now. We're still the boss. And I'm sure you've kind of been through it as well, where you want to have fun and you want to be one of the gang, but there needs to be a certain level of separation. And particularly the banter is a tough one, because I'm pretty quick-witted, right? And my thing is, if someone comes to me, I double down. I go full attack. But then I'm like, shit, you actually can't say that.
I'm the boss here.
You can't say that to your staff, because although it's meant in a really fun, jokey way, doesn't always land that way.
Of course. And it's only natural that you're going to have different people from different backgrounds with different perspectives, and what you might think is really funny might not quite land with them, but you'd get away with it if you were their friend, but maybe it's a little bit different coming from the boss. And I think it is a weird thing when you do have a younger team, and that's something that we have as well. I mean, everybody is mid-20s to mid-30s, and a significant number of the team's older than me as well. So it does create an interesting dynamic when, on weekends, these are people that could be really good friends of yours, and during the week, they have those same attributes, but you still need that level of difference or separation between the two, while still, I don't want to create a workplace that feels cold and really, a strong hierarchy. I've worked in big corporate companies. I've felt that feeling, and it's not for me, so I don't want to create that for other people, but it is a fine line that I feel like you do need to sort of remind yourself and keep coming back to it over time, that you've got the balance right.
And I'd rather get it wrong that way, to be honest. I'd rather be a bit too fun and a bit too matey and then have to pull back, rather than be real cold and go, shit, I've actually got to get these people to warm up and smile while they're here. Right or wrong, I guess.
Yeah, that's very fair. Very fair. I'm keen to dig into your story because I think it's a really cool story. But before we do, what's one thing right now that, someone that's thinking about starting a business or has just started a business in the world of branding and creative, what's the one thing that they can do straight away?
Straight away is two things. First things first is really understand who you are and what you're setting out to do.
How'd you do that? Sorry to jump in.
There are so many creatives and very, very talented creatives. And the issue that so many creatives run into is that they do have a wide set of skills. So they position themselves as being able to do everything for everyone. The problem with that is that quite often they're not really cutting through or breaking through because, person A looks the same as B, C, D, E, F. However, if they sort of take a step back and recognize, okay, well, I can do everything. And even if a client comes to me, I can do everything for them. They need to pick 1 to 2 areas that they want to focus on, at least initially, or at least front facing. Position themselves as specializing in that area. Maybe it's branding for clients in a particular industry. Mm-hmm. When that client comes to them, and let's say it's branding for a hospitality company, that hospitality company comes to them for the branding, but then once they come to them, they can sort of show them everything behind the curtains that they also do. So they're not limiting their opportunities to make money or increase the size of their projects, but they are sort of shifting their positioning so that they're able to stand out and cut through. I feel like that's the biggest mistake that creatives make now. But secondly, as a team scales and as you grow, holding on to what you do. Creatives in particular, I mean, that's what our industry is in, so that's what I know best. But they're all very proud of their work, as they should be. A lot of them are perfectionists and they love to do things to 110%, which is great for clients. However, it can cap and hinder growth because you need to learn how to delegate, how to trust other people, how to bring people on board and show them a little bit of what's going behind the scenes and take them on that journey with you. If you don't, or if you wait too long, you might miss that momentum wave that comes through and, it can be a lot harder to recreate that and take yourself on that growth journey again. Or you can just really frustrate the people that you do bring on board. If you're bringing them on board but not really giving them the freedom and flexibility to do what they do best, then they're not going to stay very long. So knowing who you are and then trusting that other people can do a good job as well is going to put you 10 steps ahead of everybody else.
Perfect timing. I feel like you're talking directly at me with what's going on now.
That's violated.
We're going through that journey now where at the moment we're very, very heavily relied upon to do a lot of revenue for the business, which is, I guess, speaking for me rather than halves, it's a nice badge of honor. Mm-hmm. It's a nice ego stroke to go, yeah, I can be the top biller.
I can do this.
Yeah, which is important, but it's the bottleneck, right? We're never going to scale past if I'm the one who's always got to be the person putting the money on the board. So we're kind of going through that now and building out teams and systems and process and AI and all of the fun stuff.
And it can be fun. That's the thing. It does shift your focus and it is different, but I find for me it's equally or if not more enjoyable than actually doing the work is. And it's also rewarding because you can see that doing all of these things that feel like you're stuck in the trenches going around in circles, when you come out the other side, the impact that it can make on your business is so huge.
And it's just the speed of change that I love so much. Like it's been 2-year sprint for us. And even from 6 months ago to now, we're so much further along. And where we'll be in 6 months, hopefully we're kind of getting close to the top of the hill in regards to all the systems and the processes and the structure. But I don't think you ever get it completely nailed, do you? Like where would you say you're at in terms of the journey now from where you were being the person doing everything to hopefully being the person who can sit in the Bahamas and...
Unfortunately, I love what I do a little bit too much to probably reach that point. It probably depends on the day that you ask me. Some days I'm like, yeah, we've got this down pat. We've got our systems. We've got our teams. We've got people that know what they're responsible for. But we have other days where I feel like we've gone back a few steps and we're sort of, picking up the pieces. Everybody's jumping in and making it happen. What I have to remind myself is that we're growing really quickly. And whilst we've got really great systems, really great processes, and really great people, we're fast outgrowing those. It's almost as soon as we implement things and it works for a couple months, we reach a new stage of growth and we have too many clients or too many team members or whatever it may be that means that process doesn't actually work anymore. So I'm trying to reframe the way that I look at it as not necessarily doing a bad job, but doing such a good job that, okay, now we need a new system or process.
Love it.
One of the things we've learned is there's never a right time. Like we've sat down with so many entrepreneurs in this room, and lots of them have got really fast growing businesses. There is never a right time to go, right, now is the time to grow. We're going to get all our ducks in a row and our systems all perfect here. Now we're going to grow. It's often you do the systems because you're chasing your tail because you've got such a good product or service that you're forced to grow. And I think there's so many parallels to people who maybe have a business idea or feel like they're destined for more, but are just thinking, oh, the time's not right, got young kids or haven't got enough savings. That feeling's never, ever, ever going to go away.
Oh, absolutely not.
So the quicker you can pull the trigger and actually start to kind of test yourself at getting used to that feeling, it's going to make the next few stages of growth and chaos a lot easier because you're going to be a bit more immune to it.
And I mean, there's probably some quote or something about how the right time is now. But it is so true. And I feel like even if you were to put a line in the sand and say, oh, well, in 3 months it will be better because of X, Y, and Z, that's purely based on the circumstances of now. You have absolutely no idea what could come up between now and then. By that point in time, you might have different team members, you might have different financial stresses, you might have personal things coming up. Maybe you're getting married, having a family. Life's always going to happen. And so you just got to do it now and make it work. And once you push through whatever difficult, challenging parts you have at that time, you also build the confidence and the systems and the processes to be able to tackle whatever the next challenge is. And over time, there's always going to be challenges. You'll just learn how to overcome them and be able to draw on the experiences that you've had previously.
It's so important, I think, to look at before the current state in terms of where people are. Because if I would just listen to this and we didn't know Niamh Sullivan like we do, I'd go, you've got life nailed. You've got a team, you got clients, Facebook and all that kind of stuff. Like, yeah, you've nailed it. But people don't obviously see the work that's gone into there. And if you're happy to share a bit, Niamh, you've probably had a tougher route to get to where you are than it was certainly me and Harvey. I guess give a bit of a rundown, a bit of insight into early life, what that kind of did for you mentally and how that's potentially shaped a little bit of the person you've become today, which is awesome.
Absolutely. So I guess early life, like 0 to 10 years old, great, really great. Growing up in Melbourne, really close family, really great extended family. So absolutely no complaints. Around 11, 12, I had some pretty significant health challenges. I was diagnosed with cancer a couple months before I turned 12 and then went through about 2 years of chemo, which was a pretty rough time. Of course, there was the chemo side of things, but I was also very, very sick by the time they actually worked out what was wrong. Spent some time in a coma, went through rehab to learn how to walk and talk again. And then it was at this point in my life where it was the last day of primary school that I was diagnosed. So the following year, all my friends went off to high school. They started the next chapter of their lives. And meanwhile, I was in a hospital bed, sort of going through daily rehabs, fortnightly surgeries, all kinds of things. And at the time, it was that there's no denying it was a very, very challenging period. I do like to look at what the silver linings were and the lessons. And I did have such an opportunity to really strengthen the relationship with my immediate family, my mum, my dad, and my sister. So that was really great. And that's really stuck with me since then, the importance of the people around you and showing up for the people that matter to you. It also taught me a sense of probably resilience is the best way of describing it, or a reminder of taking every day as it's here. There was sort of a point in my life for that year of 2008 where every single friend I met within a year passed away. So you're an 11-year-old and you're making friends. You can't connect with your friends from school because they're looking at boys on the bus and getting ready for school dances, and you're going through chemo. And so you're building these relationships with people, but then they're not coming out the other side with you. And that gives you sort of the feelings of guilt and, so many emotions to process there. But what it does remind you, or what stuck with me, is that you really never know when your time's up and what's around the corner. And I came out the other side. I had the opportunity to move on to other things. And, most of the time it's a good thing. Sometimes it pushes me a little bit too far, but I do like to try and take every single day as I have this opportunity. I can do this. Not everybody had that same opportunity as me. So if not today, then it may not be ever.
How does a 12-year-old deal with that? Because if that happened to an adult right now, like that would be tragic, scary, all of the feels, right? But at 12 years old, how do you cope with that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question that I've thought about a lot over the last, 10 to 15 years. Part of it is you don't really have a choice. I mean, I went into hospital for what I thought was a quick x-ray, woke up a couple of weeks later on Christmas Day out of a coma. So that's straight into survival mode and you just push through. Secondly, being 12, you have a bit of an advantage over the younger kids that are in hospital who don't understand what's happening, because my parents, my doctors could explain things to me and I could process things. However, you do have a bit of innocence and you're a little bit naive, so you don't necessarily think about the ripple effect and the impact that's happening to everybody around you. To me, it was just probably the guilt was the biggest thing I felt. I didn't necessarily think about, oh, what if I don't survive? Or I didn't have those thoughts because I was just too worried about the impact that I was having on other people. It probably would be the same for somebody in their 20s or 30s that's going through a similar experience, and maybe potentially worse because they've got the pressures of finances, partners, work, whatever it may be. For me, it was just that sense of missing out, but I knew in my mind that I would get there. So it was probably just delusional positivity that got me through.
Do you feel that's a bit of a superpower now? Because one of the number one reasons people don't do things, challenge themselves, whether it's fitness, business, whatever it is, it's fear. When you've been in a situation where you're like, you don't know when your last day is going to be, does that make all of those big decisions after that quite easy?
Yes, most of the time. I still have those thoughts like everybody does of, oh, what if it doesn't work out? I've got bills to pay next month. What if this investment doesn't pay off? I still have all of those thoughts. However, I do have almost like that childlike voice in the back of my head that says, but why not? You've done this, you've done that. It's all worked out. And if it doesn't work out, what's the worst thing that can happen? And that's something that probably the people around me that went through that experience with me, my mum, my dad, my sister, it's, something that we say to each other a lot. Give it a crack, and if it doesn't work out, what have you lost? It's even if it's a financial loss, even if it's a setback in business, at the end of the day and in the scheme of things, does it really matter? Are you still going to be losing sleep over it in 10 years' time? Most likely not. If you are, okay, maybe we need to think about the decision a little bit more. But if the answer is no, then give it a go and see how it plays out.
Thanks for sharing that. I kind of goosebumps then when you were talking. I couldn't even imagine what you'd have gone through. And obviously, it's obvious to see that shaped you now with kind of your mindset and belief. How has it affected, how did it shape your parents? I'm thinking of Harves now, who's got 2 little girls.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking of him then
Frightens me, eh?
going and seeing Blakey go through that, and even me, right? Like seeing Blake go through that. How did it shape your parents in terms of the people they are today?
My parents are without a doubt the strongest people I know. They both worked full-time right through me living in hospital. My dad was running a business and he would stay at home with my younger sister, run the business. My mum was a corporate accountant and she worked full-time at my bedside in hospital. So they've got a sense of resilience and grit that my sister and I really, really admire and sort of try to take on board from them. They're also incredibly generous and kind people. Their doors are always open and there is always a family friend staying with them, aunts and uncles visiting them, cousins visiting them. And they have such a value for the people in their lives, and it does not matter what the occasion is or where the occasion is, they will be there. If it is my cousin's 18th that requires them to fly 2 hours, drive 3 hours, they will be there. And they have this real understanding of nothing in life really matters except the people around you. And, they show that every single day. And it's something that I really admire about them.
Resilience. It's a word that I reckon is mentioned every single episode on this podcast. And I honestly think it's the number one skill that any entrepreneur or someone who wants to be successful can master. Alex Hormozy puts it so well. He's just like, the business isn't hard. Like, success isn't hard if you're able to endure pain and keep going at something for longer than everyone else, because 99% of the world can't endure pain and they'll just fucking stop and you just hang in there.
Very true. And I think there's those times of when everything feels great and it feels like a celebration and you're on the high. And that's what most people probably think about when they think about running a business. They think about freedom, flexibility, making a whole lot of money. And, some of those things may happen when running a business, but there's also really stressful times. There's trying to juggle priorities. There's trying to make decisions and not really having anybody to ask if you're making the right decision. There's constant shifting, pivoting. And I don't want to say that it's all bad, because it's definitely not all bad, but I think most people before they run a business don't put enough thought into those challenging times. And that's by no wrong of their own. I definitely didn't think about it. I was just like, this sounds great. This is working. I'm making money. Comes there. Let's ride this wave. But you have to be able to push through those times and know that the good times are coming, or that it's all worth it.
So before you did make the big leap into business owner life, you're working at Channel 7.
Yes.
So on paper, on the CV, wow, what a role for you, right? But I think speaking to you off air a little bit, probably wasn't as glamorous as you thought it might have been or hoped it would have been. You decided to make the leap. So talk us through, I guess, your mindset at that point, because I'm sure that you'd have seen lifers around there who'll be at Channel 7 for the rest of their days and retire, and they probably live a happy life in terms of their context. Why did you feel that was not going to be the case for you?
It was a really challenging decision at the time, because going through uni, within my first couple weeks of studying journalism, I set my mind on becoming a Channel 7 TV reporter. And I was so tunnel visioned. I didn't even contemplate 9, 10, ABC. Like, nobody else came into my mind. I wanted to be on Channel 7. And I did everything I possibly could. I interned so much during uni that my uni told me I'd run out of intern insurance. And if I wanted to keep interning, I'd need to go find it myself. So I went and sourced where you get internship insurance, paid for my own insurance, and kept showing up at Channel 7 with the mindset of, if I show up enough, I'll be that annoying girl that they're like, give her a job in another newsroom so that we never have to see her again, and she'll go on her way. And that's pretty much what happened. I interned for about a year at Channel 7, and I ended up getting a casual role with Prime 7. So that was in regional New South Wales, and moved around a few different locations before I got a permanent role. And it was great. It was a huge change. I went from living on the Gold Coast with my parents in a very comfortable, nice house, had mum and dad, making sure I was very well looked after, to moving to Taree, which is, for anyone that doesn't know, kind of 2 hours, I think, north of Newcastle, south of Port Macquarie. Farming, cattle. I'm a beach girl. I was just so out of my depth. And that didn't really matter to me, because I had the dream job and I was very young. I think I was on TV at 20 or 21 every night. And that was amazing, because that's what I'd set my mind on doing. But it was probably about 3 to 6 months in where I started having these feelings of, okay, living here is not amazing. It's not my dream location. However, I would be able to push through if I knew that this is what I wanted to do. And it just didn't have that feeling of excitement, or I wasn't waking up going, this is it, this is the dream job. And more these thoughts kept creeping in that, I actually don't know if everything that I've worked towards for the last 2 or 3 years is worth it. This isn't for me. And so I'd started doing some freelance writing on the side, mostly to pay for my airfares to come back to the Gold Coast every 2 to 3 weeks. But I reached this point where that had really taken off, and I had so much work, and that was almost a full-time job. And the problem was that I was sitting at Channel 7 thinking about my freelance work. And when I was doing my freelance work, I was loving it. So I kind of had this thought of, well, I am young. I don't have any responsibilities. I do want to move back to the Gold Coast, and I can't necessarily do that with Channel 7 just yet. That's a few years away. Why not take the leap now? And it was a decision that definitely didn't attract too many positive comments from my broader network, as in the people that I'd studied with or built relationships with in the industry, because they were like, do you realize what you're giving up? Like, this is the job. This is the job everyone wants. This is the job everyone in your class wanted. But speaking to the people closer to me that knew me well, my parents, my sister, my partner, they were like, this is what gets you excited. This is what you love doing. And if it doesn't work, like, you've left Channel 7 on good terms, like you can go back there, you can find another channel to go back to. And yeah, I guess I've just never really looked back since then. Once I made the jumped in full time. And when you're focusing on something intentionally rather than just doing it as it comes, of course it grows exponentially from there.
There's two bits I really want to unpack in that, and I reckon you're going to say the same thing. One is the steeliness and the single-mindedness. I'm going to be a Channel 7 reporter. I'm going to intern above and beyond, pay for it myself, be there, not let them say no to me. How important was that in your journey? Do you think you would have got to the next step and the internship or the Tari role would have fell in your lap without that level of grit?
Oh, absolutely not. The TV network industry is built on who you know. Like, I don't think they really advertise roles online. It's more so a role's come up out to the networks, the role's filled. So, and I was 19, 20. My parents are from the property and construction industry. My extended family, similar sorts of roles. Like, no one in my family has anything to do with the media. So I couldn't call up a aunt, uncle, family friend to get advice or build my network. So that's, showing up, doing the internships, doing every single event, activity, opportunity that Bond offered at the time. That's how I met the people that eventually helped me get the job and sort of put the word in, put the recommendations in and supported me along the way. I probably would have gotten there eventually. However, I definitely wouldn't have been on TV at, 19, 20 years old.
Another hormosy one comes to mind is like, take that much action that'd be unreasonable to not get the desired result, which it seems you did everything in your physical power to get there.
And there was definitely an element of luck. I was very lucky that I could live with my parents and that I could intern at a place that wasn't too far. I mean, it was kind of like Kingscliff to Surfers Paradise is still an hour's drive, so it wasn't around the corner. But I did have circumstances that I took advantage of to be able to reach those opportunities. And I'm sure it would have been much harder if I was from a family that lived much further away or couldn't live at home, and maybe I wouldn't have had that luck of being able to intern. However, I still did do uni full time. I worked in weddings, so I worked nights and then did the interns. So I feel like I gave it an absolute crack. I gave it all I had.
I think we mentioned earlier on in this episode about the journey. Like people are so guilty of looking at Niamh Sullivan at the summit of the mountain, right? The agency owner now that's scaled and lives the life on the Gold Coast, and they forget the ridiculous amounts of internships, the life you lived in Tari, all of the extra learning that you did at Bond, and people just are so guilty of forgetting that journey. I've not yet met anyone who's super, super successful, lives a completely and utterly balanced life, or the dream, that didn't do the hard yards. And I think people need to come to terms with that. Nothing good comes at the end without absolutely grafting for a period of time, unless mum and dad are going to go and give you $3-4 million.
You want a quote?
Oh, here we come.
It's not the pursuit of happiness, it's the happiness of the pursuit.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Have it.
Beautiful.
Have it.
Just put it up on the wall.
Yeah, I'll probably spell it wrong. The second part, what you were talking about there was my freelance is going well. I'm probably going to leave my dream job, which I've told all of my friends and family is the dream job. And then they've tried to discourage you, essentially, or go, oh, are you sure, Niamh? What was it about your brain at the time that didn't take that on board? Or you might have took it on board and considered it, but didn't let that be the decision for you. You were still pretty single-minded. No, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm going to go and do.
Hey guys, it's Jake and Lockie from Naturally Cooked Sunscreen, and we are pumped to be sponsoring the Two Blokes, One Business podcast.
We're on a mission to foster a generation of Australians who take sun safety more seriously and encourage it amongst their mates. You can find us at naturallycooked.com.au or follow us at Naturally Cooked Sunscreen.
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said it didn't sit in my mind and didn't impact the way that I was thinking about things. I knew that I didn't have all the experience in the world. I didn't have a network, and there was some comments from people not necessarily close to me, but people that I knew that really sat in my brain, and I thought, oh, maybe they do know better. Maybe I am making the wrong decision. My perspective probably comes back to what I touched on earlier in the approach to life that I've probably developed since I was 11, 12 years old, in that, well, if I don't try now, when am I going to try it? And I just knew in my mind that it would be infinitely harder for me to try and make that leap when I was maybe married or had a child or had a mortgage. I didn't have any of those things. My only responsibility was me and paying rent wherever I lived. And I knew that I had options and I could make it work. And if it didn't work, I've always, no matter where I've worked or the relationships that I've built, I've always tried to be very transparent, honest, maintain relationships. So I hoped that by leaving Channel 7 that way, the bridge was still there. I could still reach out to somebody down the track if it wasn't working out. And I had that in the back of my mind, never as a serious thought because I didn't want to let it consume my thoughts and fall back on that option too early. But it was probably just, again, a bit of a delusional positivity of, well, it's just going to work. It's the only option.
I love that word. Delusional optimism is what I go for. And I think you need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're doing a lot of work at the moment on the kind of psychology of people who support you and people who don't, right? And what I'm starting to learn is the people at Channel 7 who, when you go, hey, thanks for this, but I'm going to go and do my own thing, you would have personally attacked their belief system and their decisions to not leave Channel 7. They would have been a lifer who went to uni, did the internship, got the job, and now you're turning around telling to them, I actually think there's a better life doing a different path here, which goes completely against everything they believe in their own brain, right? Which, talking about Harwell even as well, and even the new business that we're launching, dealing with that internal conflict of how do I take that on board as you did, but still move the other way whilst also maintaining a relationship. That is such a pivotal fork in the road moment for the rest of your life. And it all comes down to courage and conviction, I think.
It does. And I think you also have to realize that as you move through different chapters and as you take different steps, and even just as you get older, even if you are staying in the same environment your whole life, you don't keep all of the same people the entire time. I find that for me, I have a core group of people around me who are people that I have built relationships with since high school or since uni or wherever it may be. They're the people's values. I really value what they have to say to me, their perspectives, their opinions. There are other people that come and go, and whilst, no disrespect to the friendships that I have with them or the relationships that I have with them, but they aren't the core of people that I keep really close to my heart. And that's something that I've had to shift my perspective about as I've gotten older, as I found that moving around, doing different careers, having different hobbies, the people around me naturally changed. And I did used to struggle with that and think that I sort of needed to keep everybody in my world there. Once they were in, they were there forever. But I've come to realize that there's really just a core of people, your family and, the closest friends that you have that you bring through everywhere. They're the opinions and perspectives that matter because at the end of the day, they have your best interests at heart. They know you better than anybody else. Everybody else's perspectives and opinions are based on their experiences, their values and their priorities, which chances are will be very different to yours.
We've spoke a lot about the external of that kind of the external voices and feelings of that transition. What about the internal? Because I know there's so many other people who are in the same boat. They've had a dream or they've gone to uni and studied for 3 or 4 years for this profession. Then they've gone and worked in this profession for 4 or 5 years. And then they just get that empty feeling of like, is this what I'm destined for? Like one that comes to mind, we've got a guy joining Harwell, moving his family up from Sydney, and he's coming here in January. He has spent 20 years in a profession. And he was chasing that top job in his profession, which for many, many years was the pinnacle. And he just said, like, is this what I'm destined for? Like, I'm going to go and chase this position for an extra 10 or 20K in my pocket on a yearly basis, but I'm working 70-hour weeks, I'm traveling, I don't see my kids and my family. That must be a really, really difficult place to be. When you were in that situation, were you quite positive and gone, no, it's a chance for a new change? Because I think a lot of people sit in the negative of that and think there is no other option and this is what they're destined for the rest of their life, but it's not the case.
I probably was a little bit unique in my thinking that in my childhood, we moved a lot. I went to 6 schools and I'm very used to starting over again, meeting new people and building, I guess, a little world for myself. So I was probably drawing on experience of even being 6, 8, 11, all these times that I started new schools and realizing that at the time it was devastating. I was moving into a new state, 12 hours away from all of my friends, but I met a best friend. I met somebody else. I met my now husband by moving to a new school. So I sort of could reflect on that and realize that any change brings great things. It will bring challenges and it will bring negative things. But if I sit in that negativity, I'll only notice the negativity. I'll only notice the problems if I reflect and realize that actually this change and this move brought this thing and this one brought that thing. Focusing on that positivity will help me find the positivity in the new situation as well. But on the other side of things, I am very much a type A person. I was very academic, straight A. I need to get 95 or above, otherwise I've failed the assignment sort of approach to my whole life, primary school, high school, uni. So to reach that point that almost felt a little bit like failure, like, am I not strong enough? Am I not emotionally strong enough to do this role? It did feel like a certain sense of failure. However, it was replaced with something that I could tangibly say, well, this is growing. I'm getting clients. I'm getting good feedback. I'm obviously good at this. And it's a similar skill that's just been transferred into a different space. So it's not a failure. It's just a redirection of those skills into a different area.
I love that so much.
It's never too late to change, is it? Like I think in Australia alone, the average age that someone becomes a millionaire in their 50s, the average age someone becomes a billionaire is in their 60s. And that financial part is just one element to it. Imagine you're 30, 35, 40. You've still potentially got 20 to 25 years of your work life left. Finances aside, imagine going through that slight scary change now, but to be fulfilled and have purpose for the rest of your working career, rather than just accepting, oh, this is the path I've chosen and no one else wants to make change and all the voices around me are saying this. That's your own head is a really hard place to live for the next 20, 25 years, just because you don't want to go through that little bit of change. And what people don't realize is once you get to actually making the change, that's the hard part done. Yeah. When you make it and you've found your purpose and then you're creating something for yourself, from day one, all the fear goes away. And like that pain of change just evaporates and you just have this like overwhelming energy that every single day you can't wait to get up and get going. Since we started this business, I don't feel like I've worked a day in my life. And that's the real power.
There's two types of change as well. You can go and do something completely different, right? You run a manufacturing facility. You want to go and be a scuba diver. Awesome. Yeah. Good on you, right? Like go and do that. That's essentially starting from scratch. You're going back to zero and you build up. Exciting, it's fun, it's new. Or you can leverage what you've already done, which is exactly what you did. You didn't decide, hey, I'm going to go to uni and then get the internship and then I'm going to go and become a recruiter, for example, right? Okay, great. I've got this skill set. Now let's mold it into more of a pathway that I find more fulfilling. It's more rewarding, both financially and kind of internally as well. So there's plenty of ways and avenues in life. You can leverage the qualifications, the people you've met along the way, the knowledge you've gained, all of the things you've learned, but just pivot in a slightly different way, which then gives you whatever gap you're trying to fill in your current role. Happy day.
I think you can be creative about it as well. I mean, you've built skills and there's probably 3 options that feel like a natural sidestep from that current role. But if you look at those skills a little bit more objectively or from the perspective of somebody else that doesn't do your role, you might actually realize that those skills can be transferred into a completely different space and you're not having to throw them out the window. You're utilizing them and redirecting them somewhere else that brings you more fulfillment in what could feel like a completely different industry or role. Teachers
come to mind. So my partner's an aspiring business owner, but still a primary school teacher at the moment until we can get that off the ground. And I think teachers find it really hard. And there's probably a few layers we can go here, but on the surface level, they find it hard to transition to new careers. I think off their own beliefs more so than the actual real world, because all the things they've got, like looking after kids, managing the team. Same thing, right?
Time management, putting out fires,
curriculum building, right? There's so many different parts of being a teacher which transfer into the business world, but it's a lot more difficult, I think, as an employer to look at a teacher and see those. Not everyone's just kind of got the eyes open as they should, but their own belief as well, which is such a shame because it's a tough industry.
Oh, yeah. I take my hat off to teachers, their patience.
Look, you go.
I was going to say there's 2 prongs to business. I think obviously when we're talking about career change and pivoting, one is the purpose. Like often a business is driven by a bigger purpose and then all the finances and stuff follow. But it's also, and one thing for me in particular, I never wanted to be a recruiter. I never loved recruitment in the early days, but you also fall in love with the vehicle a lot more by what it can give you. So now recruitment in business, it gives me financial freedom where we're building wealth and investments that will go on far beyond mine and Adam's life. It brings me time freedom time freedom in the sense of being able to create my own calendar, but be able to go and pick up my little girl from daycare on a Thursday and not having to ask your boss if you can go and do it. But then also just like pressure freedom. Yes, there's the pressure of business and, you know, paying staff at the end of the month and things like that when you're going through growth, but you don't have those Sunday scaries or those small moments. Like that, falling in love with that end game makes the vehicle become a lot more easier to kind of get on board with and push it.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, something to add to that list is, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that being a business owner in my experience has given me the flexibility to go to the beach for 5 hours on a Tuesday and go for coffee for 3 hours on a Thursday. But it does give me the flexibility to show up for the week and think the priorities for me this week are building out a new product within the business, improving the systems within this space and hiring a person within that space. And there's nobody telling me that that's the wrong thing to do, that we can't do that I need to do X, Y, and Z first. I have this flexibility to be able to build the priorities and the creative freedom to try new things. And I think a lot of the time in larger companies that are a little bit more established with more processes and more hierarchy, your days are, in my experience, a little bit more regimented, and you've got job A, B, and C to do for each day, and maybe 1 and 2 that need to be done across the week. And that's the only real flexibility you have in how you approach your week. I love being able to wake up or start the month and think, for this month, we're going to do this. And then to be able to share that with the people around me, get them involved, that's what gets me excited.
It's freeing, isn't it?
Hopefully no one goes on your Instagram and sees you're in Europe for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a bit of work.
I'm really keen to, we're speaking very high level and kind of mindset. Now let's go nitty gritty, right? I'm just about to pull the trigger on a business, or I just have, but my content and my branding's been all over the place, right? What are some of the pillars that you guide your clients through? What are some of the tangible steps to take to get someone from point A, which is very unorganized, very erratic, very emotional, to a really structured, seamless kind of process of building their brand and building their content strategy?
For me, 2 things. The first probably comes across as quite biased running a creative agency, but I feel like investing in your brand, that is key from the very beginning, because if you launch without a brand, without a logo, without any consistency, you're really missing an opportunity for people to recognize who you are over time. Even if it isn't the world's greatest logo and brand, as long as it's something that is consistent and allows you to get the message out there with clarity, with consistency, then people will be able to recognize who you are over time, and you'll be able to grow and build momentum. I would recommend, of course, that it's something that you work with somebody on, unless you're a creative yourself, because at the end of the day, everybody's got different skills that they're good at. And it's the first thing, it's the front door to your business, the first thing that people see and how they form an impression of you and who you are. I'd say it's a very worthwhile investment to make quite early on in the piece. When we think about the technical nitty-gritty steps of how to bring it to life, I am such a to-do list, priorities person. And for me, it's about mapping out what are 3 things I can do this week. Not 10, not 30, but 3. And that might be get a website landing page up, reach out to 5 potential clients, and post on LinkedIn. 3 very small, actionable things, and doing that on a weekly basis, because probably for the first 4 weeks, 6 weeks, you might feel like you're talking to crickets or what you're doing isn't having a tangible impact. But if you hold off on doing those things until you've got momentum, or until you've made it, or until you've got clients, you'll never actually reach that point, or it'll take you 10 times longer to reach that point, because all of those 1% little things add up. The compounding effect of that is very real, regardless of what business you're in. Those priorities will depend on what industry you're in. For me, I know what I would do. I'd be posting on LinkedIn, I would be creating a presence, and I would be reaching out to 5 potential clients every week, probably more, but keeping it something that's very tangible.
I love what you said about the compounding effect of posting. Even if you feel like no one's seeing it, someone's always seeing it.
Yep.
I see some of your posts and I go, fuck, what a great post. I don't message you. Sometimes I'm shit at even liking those posts, but I see it and I go, cool, what an awesome post. Niamh is a key person of influence in her sector. If I need branding, I'm going to go to you because you stay in front of mine. That's what some people fail to understand. And it's those small 1%ers that, like you said, actually build up that momentum.
Absolutely. And it's a conversation that we have very regularly with clients, because the way most of us are wired to think because of our experience with social media is that getting likes or getting engagement is everything. However, we know that quite a number of shares of any post are not documented shares. It's a screenshot that somebody sends in a group chat to other people or mentions when they're having coffee with friends. So you have this opportunity to reach such a broad number of people without actually realizing. Secondly to that, the consistency of just showing up in people's feed. And as you said, someone might not like it, they might not comment on it, but they'll remember it. And if you're showing up consistently in their feed in a similar style, but across a number of key pillars that make sense to you, then you're going to be top of mind when they do come towards looking for somebody within your space.
The branding's huge, and it's the embodiment of, I think, becoming the agency or the person you want to be. Like when we started Harwell, we modeled our branding and our look off one of the leading luxury real estate company in the Gold Coast. We've since sat down with the owner and told him that. We're like, you'll notice some parallels, but we were like, from day one, it's just me and Adam in his kitchen. And yes, we shared some of that, but to the external world, if they went and found us, they go, wow, what a great brand. So we tried to become this $1 million agency. 10 months later, we became a $1 million agency. I think the goal or the baseline we needed to hit in year one was $300K to pay ourselves, similar to what we'd earned in our previous year. But by having the branding and becoming that sort of $1 million agency, naturally you just follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I think that's something that most people do is they look at who's at the top of the industry. How do I model what I'm doing now with that person at the top? But what they're forgetting is that actually being small and being at the start of their journey can be a little bit of a superpower. People will make that decision of whether working with a big company or working with a boutique company is a better fit for them. And if being boutique is where you are or you're at the beginning of your journey, you're actually alienating a huge portion of the market that would actually want to work with you by trying to pretend that you're somebody else that you're not.
There's a fine line, hey, between yes, we're legit, right? Like we actually
we've done this before.
We have a business and we know what we're doing. But yeah, there is magic. And I think that's probably what accelerated our growth early on is it was so raw and just so real and authentic. And we were kind of sharing what we were learning, sharing what was going wrong. We're probably at a funny point now where we're definitely not Colossi, but we're a decent business. People know the name Harwell. They've got an idea of what that means as a business and what we're all about, which is amazing. But now our content probably is a little bit too polished. You know, we're lucky we've got
definitely
an in-house marketing manager, Rosie. We're lucky we've got Jimmy who does a lot of content for us. And it's a bit more professional. It's not me walking around in my townhouse estate in Clear-Eyed Waters with the birds chirping in the background going, hey, mate, if you're looking for a product.
I'm the one.
But that shit worked, didn't it?
Yeah. It just draws people in.
What did you do early on? Because you're a startup business, arguably, other than a bit of copywriting, freelancing work on the side, you haven't done this before. And quite early on, you're working with people like Google and Meta. Is that correct? How do you pitch to them?
So the one thing, leaving uni, when you go to Bond, you're not really able to graduate without doing 3 core classes. And in the first one of those classes, you can't finish that class until you have a LinkedIn account. So I had, from my very first semester of uni, this understanding that LinkedIn must be the key to my success in my career. At the time, it was probably a little bit exaggerated in my brain. However, it has been very pivotal towards my growth. What I did once I realized that this freelance writing was what I wanted to do was start posting actively on LinkedIn in whatever capacity I could. I obviously couldn't go too hard into advertising myself as a writer and a strategist because I still did have a job at Channel 7 where people were actively contacting me for stories on 7. So alongside that, I had to do what I could do almost behind the scenes or in direct communication. So I would spend weekends Googling every creative agency I could find within a particular area. So I'd say, okay, this weekend I'm going to focus on the Gold Coast or Brisbane. I would Google them. I had this funny email template that I'd written out, which had lots of really bad dad jokes in it. But basically it showed that I had personality when I write and I could write. and I would pitch my services to them. I managed to get a few clients from there, and then I started a personal website where I wrote blogs and articles. My work with Facebook came via a person that worked for Meta in New York, read my article. To this day, I'm not quite sure how she came across my article, but she then emailed and reached out wanting an interview to discuss some ongoing work. So to me, that was really the moment of like, wow, posting online, showing up, staying consistent, even when I felt like it was just my mom and my grandma that were reading what I was writing. It obviously worked. Once I had that relationship and ongoing work with Meta, I then had the portfolio to be able to pitch myself either as a freelancer, subcontracting under an agency, or directly with businesses at that global scale, because I could say, well, I've worked at Channel 7, I've worked with Meta, here's my portfolio.
So you leverage that, because I'm thinking, how do you go into an interview with Google or Meta, Facebook about working for them when probably really what you want to sit down and say is, hey, on weekends, I write personal blogs on this channel in my mum and dad's spare room. Now,
that was exactly what it was.
Exactly what you said. But then you're able to also leverage, yes, I'm doing that in my spare time, but I'm leveraging my past experience and my past network from a massive name like Channel 7 in this sector.
And what was really lucky with them is that it was a complete coincidence that this woman was based in New York, but her working hours were not my working hours at Channel 7. It was nighttime. So my meetings with her were at midnight, 1 a.m., 3 a.m. So I could, not very well and not very healthily, but I could balance the two for a certain period of time to be able to do what I needed to do at 7, do what I needed to do with my writing work, and then grow it, scale it, show that I could show up and prove myself. And they weren't projects that required me to be working particular hours. I just had periods when the work was due. So I could do it on a Sunday afternoon. I could do it on a Monday morning. I could do it whenever I could fit it in.
You need to just lean into the authenticity as well. And obviously you told them the story. I remember when we started Harwell and our first few clients, yes, we'd done this for a previous company, but we went on early on and tried to win new clients on because of non-compete clauses and things like that. And I just remember like thinking, well, what's our pitch here? Because we've not really helped anyone through this business yet. And I remember just sitting down and just saying to some people, what I can promise you is that my partner's at home on maternity leave. I've just dropped my salary. I've done this before for another company. I've not helped anyone through Harwell yet, but I can promise you, no one is going to work as fucking hard as me to get this result for your business.
Oh, absolutely. And they've probably received the best experience that any client will ever experience because that was the one that mattered for you. You needed the first run on the board. So you're going to do 200% to make sure that you're making it work.
Yeah, it's magic in the early days.
You just clicked in my pitch. I can remember saying, look, same thing, right? There's my name on the door here. There's nowhere to hide. If I don't go and do a really, really good job for you and you hire this person and then pay me, I can't feed my dog Murphy. Like, and then straight away they go, fuck, that guy
This guy's
is serious.
locked in.
Right? Fuck, they were the good old days, weren't they? I can actually visualise it now, walking around my little backyard.
Yeah, like I was upstairs in the spare room, Ads is in the kitchen, and like you just all of a sudden you'd hear, like someone's got to deal with it.
Yeah, it's class.
I mean, there is an element though of just making it work. I remember pitching projects or services to people really early on and then coming back being like, absolutely, we'd like X, Y, and Z. I'd never worked in an agency. I didn't actually know what those things were. And I'd be like, of course, I'll have it to you next week. And then I'd have to go away and work out actually A, what that was, B, what went into it, and C, how to do it. And whilst it, you could look at that as like not really knowing what you're doing, but I approached it with this sense of let me learn absolutely everything that I can and approach it without any bias or any preconceived ideas. And a lot of that work actually really informs what we do now. In our brand strategies, probably, I haven't seen any brand strategies from other agencies, but they wouldn't be the same as those because ours are driven by journalism. They're driven by finding news stories, by finding angles, by finding what cuts through and what makes people stand out. And that's why a lot of people come to us for our brand strategies because they know that they're different and they know that what comes from that will allow them to really share their story.
It's that skill acquisition, isn't it? It's so cool when you're in business and there's nowhere to turn to. You can't just go, oh, hey, Mr. Manager, I've been asked to do this thing. Can you help me? There's no one to turn to.
Absolutely.
It is like, oh, well, I need or want the client. I'm not going to let them down. Let's get to work. Let's go and learn it.
I think if you don't stop and think back, you'll actually forget how much you have learned. I think, we develop websites and launch websites every single week. I don't even know that websites had backends when I started doing what we do. So, to realize how much knowledge I have established over time, you really have to stop and think, wow, I actually have come a long way, and I do have things that I can teach other people because I have built those skills.
Just putting yourself out there and keep pushing yourself as well. Like I love a saying, if you don't, well, you can't win the raffle if you don't buy a ticket. Like on Friday, I'm going to go and sit down with the head of people and culture of one of Australia's largest retailers to discuss being on their PSA panel for recruiters. Now that is a potential agreement that will be worth well north of 6 figures every single year for this business. There is absolutely no way that 2.5 years in, we should be having discussions of national PSAs with Australian retail giants. Absolutely no way. But it's just from buying a fucking ticket.
Yeah.
It's from sending that first message, having the conversation, getting that first opportunity to work on a role for them, which we did, and just going, this is the most important position we are working on in this business now, regardless of the financial reward, because there were bigger roles that we were working on that were way higher in fees. But it's like, this is the most important thing. Yeah. This is the one. You nail this, this is what it could achieve.
And it's so true. And you never know where that opportunity will come from, where you'll be able to buy that ticket. And for me, I found that it's come in the most obscure and unusual ways. And what I've sort of tried to remind myself and tried to learn is that if I just approach life in general, not even just work, but life in general with an open mind, I enjoy talking to people. I enjoy meeting people. And if I can just do that wherever I go and not expect anything in return, not expect it to be a transaction, just build a network of people, things will come from that. Whether it's a friendship, whether it's a client, whether it's a new person to join the team, none of that happens unless you're paying attention to what's going on in the world around you.
Just buy as many tickets as possible.
Because I can imagine, right, someone sat here now going, fuck, you've just spoke to me the whole episode. I'm in that role. I've got something I want to do. Shit, after what Niamh's been through, how can I not go and do it, right? What would be your one piece of advice to that person who's sat there? They know they've got a bit of fire in the belly. Yeah. They've got a bit of an idea of what they can use that fire for, but they're just not taking action.
It's not that serious. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Okay, so
just do it and have fun while you're doing it. If you're having fun, you're giving it a crack, it's probably going to work out. And if it doesn't work out, it'll lead to something else that work
100%.
out. And I'm very guilty of this. I get very caught up in my mind of not wanting to do things until they're perfect, not wanting to try something until we've got some more runs on the board. But then I have to realize, well, people 2 years behind me in their business journey are doing it and it's working for them. People 5 years ahead of me are doing it and it's working for them. Why can't I do it? And once you realize that at the end of the day, nothing bad's really probably going to become of it. You might laugh at yourself a bit. You might, your friends might make a bit of fun of you, but a week later you will have forgotten all about it anyway. So just give it a crack.
That's such a good lesson. That's so powerful. I think your story in general, like back to your illness as a youngster, like hearing that story and the way you've bounced back and the journey you've been on, even just grafting away in Tari, doing all the internships like that, you wouldn't have known it at the time, but that has all led to this point.
Absolutely. Yeah, at the time I felt like I was missing out. My friends were on the Gold Coast. They were going to the beach. They were having fun. Majority of them were still at uni. And I was like, I am in a cow paddock in the middle of nowhere talking about things I don't understand. It felt like I've made the wrong decision. This isn't it. But I now realize that without having had that step or done those things, I probably wouldn't be here now. I probably would still be working out what the pieces are and what the next step is. So it all works out in the end.
So easy to connect the dots backwards.
If only it was as easy at the time.
Even the soft skills, you'd have learned, you'd have learned how to speak on camera. And that's all really, really important. But the soft skills of being able to go up to a grumpy farmer, diffuse the situation, have a good conversation and connect, huge.
Absolutely. And even the age I was at, being 19, 20, 21, and some of the stories that I was doing, or the first time I went into court with Channel 7 was to do the inquest into the missing case of William Tyrrell, the young child. And I had never been in a court before. I'd done media law at uni, but this was actually doing it in real life. Even being in situations like that where journalists have flown in from all around the country to do this inquest in Taree, and there's little me sitting there texting my mum being like, hey mum, do you think this would be a good idea? And she's an accountant going, I don't know, Niamh, just do something. Those situations of having to work it out when you feel so far out of your depth and like the odd one out in that situation, that definitely has that lifelong ability to go, you know what? Everybody's working it out. There's probably 10 other people in that room thinking, what am I doing here? But I just didn't realize because I was so caught up in my head.
Yeah. The stories like yours, this is exactly why we launched this podcast.
Yeah,
like what we've done to our life and the change we've had just by going on this journey is more than we could have ever imagined. And I'm sure it's the same for yourself. And we wanted to build this podcast to inspire people and give them the tools and the knowledge to go and do the same. Like we're just so passionate about it. Like even our friends, we're always just trying to help them. Try this, try that. Mm-hmm. So thanks so much for sharing it and sharing everything today. But I want to know where people can find you if they think I need to work with Niamh.
Best place to find me is where I'm showing up pretty often is LinkedIn, Niamh Sullivan there. I do share a little bit via my Instagram, also Niamh Sullivan. But of course, Infix Studio, our website, is where you can see the full showcase of what we're doing and who we're doing it for.
I really enjoyed that. That's been fun.
Awesome. See you next week.
Thanks for having me.